Picture this. It's October 1945, 3 weeks after Japan's surrender. At Camp McCoy in Wisconsin, American guards watch in stunned silence as Japanese prisoners of war encounter something they've never seen before. Not advanced weapons technology, not American industrial might, something far more mundane yet utterly revolutionary to their understanding of daily life. Hot running water, individual soap bars, private shower stalls with unlimited time limits. Private Hiroshi Tanaka, a 23-year-old former Imperial Navy sailor, stands frozen at the entrance to the shower facility, his eyes wide with disbelief. Behind him, dozens of Japanese POWs whisper among themselves in rapid, excited Japanese. They're not discussing military secrets or escape plans. They're trying to comprehend a level of personal hygiene that seems almost mythical. But here's what makes this story absolutely extraordinary. These aren't rural farmers or isolated mountain villagers. These are educated soldiers, many from Japan's major cities, men who considered themselves representatives of a modern civilized nation. Yet they're about to discover that their understanding of cleanliness exists in a completely different universe from American standards. Sergeant Bill Morrison, the camp's hygiene officer, has seen thousands of prisoners from across the Pacific Theater. German POWs, Italian soldiers, even captured SS officers. But nothing has prepared him for the cultural shock he's witnessing. These Japanese prisoners aren't just surprised by American facilities. They're genuinely confused by the very concept of individual daily bathing. Let me take you inside the mind of these Japanese soldiers and show you exactly what they discovered about American hygiene that challenged everything they thought they knew about cleanliness, civilization, and what it means to be human. The first revelation hits them before they even enter the shower room. Each prisoner receives his own bar of soap, not a communal block to be shared among dozens of men, not a small sliver rationed for the week. A complete individually wrapped bar of ivory soap that belongs entirely to one person. Lieutenant Kenji Yamada, who commanded a destroyer escort in the Philippine Sea, holds his soap bar like it's made of gold. In his diary, later discovered by American intelligence, he writes with trembling handwriting, "They give each man soap as if it costs nothing." In Japan, such luxury would feed a family for days. But the soap is just the beginning. American guards demonstrate the shower procedure, and the Japanese prisoners watch with the intensity of students studying advanced physics. Turn the handle, and hot water flows instantly. Not lukewarm, not rationed. Hot water that continues flowing for as long as you want. Private Tanaka later tells his interrogators through a translator, "In our Navy, we bathed in cold seawater when possible. Sometimes we went weeks without any washing. These Americans bathe in heated fresh water every single day like emperors." The cultural divide runs deeper than simple logistics. In Imperial Japan, frequent bathing was considered a luxury for the wealthy elite. Most soldiers, even those from middle-class families, viewed extensive personal hygiene as wasteful, almost unpatriotic, when resources were desperately needed for the war effort. Corporal Akira Sato, captured at Okinawa, explains to camp officials, "We were taught that suffering builds character. That comfort makes soldiers weak, but these American guards are clean every day, and they fight like demons." The psychological impact is immediate and profound. These prisoners aren't just learning new hygiene habits, they're confronting the fundamental lie their military leaders told them about American weakness and decadence. If Americans could afford to give every single prisoner unlimited hot water and individual soap, what did that say about American industrial capacity? What did it say about everything they'd been told about their enemy? The shower stalls themselves become objects of fascination. Private shower spaces with doors that lock. Complete privacy for personal hygiene. No communal bathing where rank and social status determine your position. Every man, regardless of former position in the imperial military hierarchy, gets exactly the same facilities. Master Sergeant Ichiro Nakamura, a veteran of the China campaign, observes this democratic approach to cleanliness with growing unease. In his later testimony, he admits, "I began to understand that America's strength came not from their weapons, but from how they treated even their lowest soldier better than we treated our officers." But the real shock comes when the prisoners discover that this isn't special treatment for POWs. American guards inform them, through interpreters, that every American soldier receives these same facilities. Every factory home to similar worker goes sun in bathrooms. Every farmer's the military enjoys hot showers as a basic right, not a privilege earned through rank or social connections. The interpreters, mostly Japanese American soldiers from the 442nd Infantry Regiment, watch their former countrymen's reactions with a mixture of sadness and vindication. Staff Sergeant Danielle Okamoto, whose own family was interned during the war, later wrote, "Watching those POWs discover basic American living standards was like watching children learn that fairy tales are real." Some prisoners initially refused the showers entirely, not out of defiance, but from genuine fear that such luxury must be a trap. Surely Americans wouldn't waste precious resources on enemy prisoners unless there was some hidden purpose. Captain Toshiro Matsui, a former kamikaze trainer who survived when his base was captured, spends 3 days convinced that the soap contains poison or mind control chemicals. He's not paranoid, he's applying Japanese military logic to American actions and reaching the only conclusion that makes sense to his worldview. When no prisoners become ill or display unusual behavior after bathing, Matsui finally accepts that Americans genuinely provide these facilities without ulterior motives. His reaction, recorded by camp psychiatrists, reveals the deeper psychological transformation occurring. "I do not understand these people. They treat their enemies better than we treated our own soldiers." The hot water becomes a particular obsession. Japanese prisoners begin timing how long the water stays hot, expecting it to run cold after a few minutes, like the rare heated baths they'd experienced in Japan. When the water temperature remains constant for 10, 20, 30 minutes, some prisoners assume the entire American energy grid must be devoted to heating prisoner bath water. They can't comprehend that hot water on demand is simply standard in American homes, schools, and military facilities. The industrial capacity required to provide unlimited hot water to every citizen seems impossible to minds trained on Japanese resource scarcity. Private Yuki Hashimoto, captured during the final weeks of fighting on Luzon, becomes obsessed with understanding American bathroom fixtures. He spends hours studying faucets, trying to determine how they deliver hot and cold water simultaneously. His engineering background tells him this should require massive infrastructure, yet Americans treat it as mundane as breathing. The toilet paper situation creates its own cultural crisis. Individual rolls for each prisoner, replaced when empty, made from soft white paper, instead of the rough brown material Japanese soldiers occasionally received. Some prisoners initially save their toilet paper, assuming it must be rationed, despite American assurances that more will always be available. Lieutenant Yamada's diary entry from November 1945 captures the existential confusion. "They waste more paper for personal hygiene in one day than my entire unit saw in a month. Yet they are not weak, they are not soft. They destroyed our entire Pacific fleet while maintaining these standards. What manner of nation is this?" The answer to that question would reshape these prisoners' understanding of everything they thought they knew about strength, civilization, and what it truly means to be a modern society. But their discoveries about American hygiene standards were just beginning. The dental hygiene demonstrations that followed left Japanese prisoners questioning everything they understood about human health. At 0800 hours every morning, American guards would line up with toothbrushes and something called toothpaste, scrubbing their teeth with mechanical precision for exactly 2 minutes. Private Tanaka watches this ritual with the intensity of an anthropologist studying an alien culture. Individual toothbrushes for every single person. Tubes of white paste squeezed onto bristles with casual indifference to waste. Fresh, minty breath that seems to last throughout the day. In our army, he confides to fellow prisoner Corporal Sato, we cleaned our teeth with salt when we could find it. Sometimes we chewed on twigs. These Americans brush twice every day like it's a military order. But it's not just frequency that astounds them. It's the technology itself. Electric toothbrushes that vibrate automatically. Dental floss, thin as spider silk, but strong enough to clean between teeth. Mouthwash that kills bacteria and leaves breath smelling like peppermint forests. Camp dentist Major Robert Chen, himself a second-generation Japanese-American, conducts mandatory dental examinations for all POWs. What he discovers shocks even his medical training. 90% of Japanese prisoners show signs of severe dental decay. Gum disease so advanced that many have lost multiple teeth before age 25. These aren't signs of poor personal habits, Major Chen reports to Camp Command. This is systematic nutritional deficiency combined with complete absence of preventive dental care. Their military didn't just ignore dental hygiene, they actively discouraged it as wasteful luxury. Master Sergeant Nakamura, during his dental examination, learns that Americans visit trained dental professionals every 6 months for cleaning and maintenance. Not when teeth hurt, not when infection threatens life. Every 6 months, as routine preventive care. The concept breaks his mind completely. You heal teeth before they become sick? He asks through the interpreter, his voice filled with wonder. Your medicine can stop pain before it begins? Major Chen explains fluoride treatments, cavity prevention, orthodontic corrections for purely aesthetic reasons. American teenagers get their teeth straightened not because crooked teeth cause medical problems, but because straight teeth look better. Nakamura sits in stunned silence. His own children back in Osaka have never seen a dentist. Most Japanese families consider tooth loss an inevitable part of aging, like grey hair or wrinkled skin. The idea that dental health could be maintained throughout an entire lifetime seems like fantasy. The laundry facilities create their own revelation. Industrial washing machines that clean clothes with hot water and soap every single day. Not hand washing in cold streams when soap became available. Not wearing the same uniform for weeks until it literally fell apart. Fresh, clean clothing as often as desired. Lieutenant Yamada discovers that American soldiers receive multiple sets of identical uniforms. When one becomes dirty, they simply change into another, while the first gets professionally cleaned. The logistics alone staggers his military mind. We wore our uniforms until they rotted off our bodies, he writes in his diary. These Americans treat clothing like ammunition. Unlimited supply, constantly replenished, never allowed to run short. Private Hashimoto becomes fascinated by American laundry detergent, chemical compounds specifically designed to remove different types of stains. Blood, mud, grease, sweat, each requiring different treatment, but all removable with proper technique and materials. In the Imperial Japanese Army, soldiers learned to live with permanent stains. Uniforms became historical records of every battle, every march, every meal. Americans erase that history daily, emerging fresh and clean, as if they'd never seen combat. The psychological impact deepens when prisoners realize these standards extend beyond military facilities. Letters from home, smuggled through Red Cross channels, describe American civilian life in terms that sound impossible. Every American home contains a private bathroom with hot running water. Individual families own washing machines for their personal clothing. Children bathe daily and visit dentists regularly. Workers shower before and after their shifts in factories. Captain Matsui reads these descriptions with growing horror. Not horror at American luxury, but horror at the implications. If Americans could maintain these hygiene standards while fighting a global war across 2 oceans, what did that reveal about comparative national strength? We told our people that Americans were soft and weak, he confides to camp chaplain Father O'Brien during one of their conversations. We said their comfort made them unable to fight, but they maintained comfort while defeating us completely. What does that make us? See, Father O'Brien, who served as a chaplain with Marine units across the Pacific, recognizes the existential crisis these prisoners face. They're not just learning about American hygiene standards. They're discovering that everything their leaders told them about American character was fundamentally wrong. The barbershop becomes another source of cultural shock. Professional haircuts every 2 weeks, performed by trained barbers using clean instruments sterilized between customers. Hot towels, aftershave, precise trimming that leaves every prisoner looking neat and well-groomed. Private Sato has never experienced a professional haircut. In the Japanese military, soldiers cut each other's hair with whatever sharp instruments were available. No mirrors, no precision, no concern for appearance beyond basic military regulations. American Barber Sergeant Tony Ricci treats Japanese prisoners with the same professional care he provides American soldiers. Clean cape, sharp scissors, attention to detail that transforms rough-looking POWs into presentable young men. These guys appreciate good work, Ricci tells his assistant. They've never had anyone take care of them like this. Makes you think about what kind of army treats its own soldiers worse than we treat enemy prisoners. The mirrors themselves become objects of fascination. Clear, undistorted glass that reflects perfect images. Most Japanese soldiers haven't seen their own faces clearly in months or years. When they finally look in American mirrors after proper grooming, many don't recognize themselves. Lieutenant Yamada stares at his reflection after his first American haircut and shave. Clean, well-groomed, properly fed, he looks nothing like the desperate soldier captured on Luzon. He looks human again. I had forgotten what I looked like, he writes. Americans returned my face to me along with my dignity. What manner of enemy does such things? The question haunts every aspect of their prisoner experience. These Americans don't just provide basic necessities. They maintain standards of human dignity that surpass what these soldiers experienced in their own military service. But the most profound discovery still awaited them, the revelation that would shake their understanding of civilization itself. The revelation comes during their first visit to the camp medical facility, not for emergency treatment or combat wounds, but for routine health examinations that American military doctrine requires for all personnel, including prisoners. Dr. Margaret Sullivan, one of only 3 female physicians these Japanese soldiers have ever encountered, conducts medical examinations with a thoroughness that defies their understanding of military medicine. Blood pressure checks, temperature readings, examination of eyes, ears, throat, and skin conditions. Complete physical assessments performed on enemy prisoners as if they were valuable American citizens. Private Tanaka sits on the examination table, trembling not from fear, but from confusion. In the Imperial Japanese Navy, medical care meant battlefield surgery when absolutely necessary. Soldiers died from infections that could be prevented with basic antiseptic treatment. Diseases spread through units because medical supplies were reserved for officers. When did you last see a doctor? Dr. Sullivan asks through the interpreter. Tanaka calculates in his head. Before military service, his family visited a physician once when his younger brother nearly died from pneumonia. During 3 years of naval service, he received medical attention exactly twice, once for a broken arm, once for shrapnel removal after an air attack. Maybe 4 years ago, he answers honestly. Dr. Sullivan's expression reveals nothing, but her notes record everything: malnutrition, vitamin deficiencies, untreated infections, dental decay, skin conditions, parasitic infections, symptoms of diseases that could be easily prevented or cured with proper medical care. Master Sergeant Nakamura undergoes the same thorough examination. When Dr. Sullivan discovers he's been suffering from chronic stomach pain for over a year, she immediately orders additional tests. Not because he requested treatment, not because the condition threatens his ability to work, because American medical standards require addressing all health issues regardless of the patient's status. You treat sick enemies? Nakamura asks the interpreter, his voice filled with wonder. We treat sick human beings, Dr. Sullivan responds. That's what doctors do. The concept shatters something fundamental in Nakamura's worldview. Japanese military medicine focused on returning soldiers to combat effectiveness as quickly as possible. Chronic conditions that didn't immediately threaten life or fighting ability were ignored completely. The idea that medicine existed to improve quality of life, not just prevent death, seems revolutionary. But the real shock comes when prisoners discover American preventive medicine. Vaccinations against diseases they've never heard of, vitamin supplements to address nutritional deficiencies, regular checkups designed to catch problems before they become serious. Lieutenant Yamada receives his first vaccination against tuberculosis, a disease that killed his eldest brother and infected half his hometown. The idea that medicine could prevent illness rather than just treat it seems like magic. In Japan, we accept that people get sick and die, he tells Dr. Sullivan through the interpreter. You Americans believe you can stop sickness before it happens? We try, she responds simply. That's what civilized societies do. That phrase haunts every prisoner who hears it. Civilized societies. They had considered themselves representatives of a civilized nation. Yet Americans demonstrate levels of care for human health and dignity that expose Japanese military culture as barbarically primitive. The pharmacy becomes another source of amazement. Shelves lined with medications for conditions Japanese soldiers didn't know could be treated. Aspirin for headaches, antacids for stomach problems, antiseptic creams for minor cuts, cough medicine, eye drops, bandages, gauze, medical supplies in quantities that seem impossible. Corporal Sato, whose feet have been infected for months from inadequate boots and constant moisture, receives proper medical treatment for the first time in his military career. Clean bandages changed daily. Antibiotic powder to fight infection. Properly fitted boots that don't cause additional wounds. They heal feet that don't threaten life, he asks the medic in amazement. We heal everything we can, the medic responds. Why would we let people suffer unnecessarily? The question exposes the fundamental difference between Japanese and American approaches to human value. Japanese military culture accepted suffering as character building, viewing comfort and medical care as weakening influences that made soldiers less effective. Americans demonstrated that healthy, comfortable soldiers fought more effectively than sick, suffering ones. The contradiction challenged everything these prisoners believed about military efficiency and human nature. The mental health services create their own cultural crisis. Camp psychiatrist Major David Kowalski conducts interviews with prisoners showing signs of psychological distress, not interrogations designed to extract military intelligence. Therapeutic sessions aimed at helping traumatized soldiers process their experiences and maintain mental stability. Captain Matsui finds himself in weekly sessions discussing his fears, his guilt over surviving when his men died, his confusion about American treatment of prisoners. The concept of mental health as something requiring professional care seems incomprehensible. In our army, fear was cowardice. he explains to Major Kowalski. Sadness was weakness. Confusion was failure of discipline. You Americans believe minds can be sick like bodies? We believe human beings are complex, Major Kowalski responds. Physical health and mental health are equally important for functional people. The sessions reveal the psychological damage inflicted by Japanese military culture. Soldiers trained to suppress all emotional responses except blind obedience and suicidal courage. Men who haven't been allowed to express fear, sadness, or confusion for years, discovering that these emotions are normal human responses to trauma. Private Hashimoto breaks down during his third session, sobbing uncontrollably as he describes watching his best friend die from infected wounds that could have been easily treated with proper medical supplies. Major Kowalski listens without judgment, offering tissues and quiet understanding. I failed him, Hashimoto whispers. I should have died instead. You survived, Major Kowalski responds gently. That doesn't make you a failure, that makes you human. The concept of survivor's guilt as a treatable psychological condition rather than a moral failing transforms Hashimoto's understanding of his own experience. Americans don't just treat physical ailments, they address emotional wounds with the same systematic care they provide for broken bones or infections. The recreational therapy programs push cultural boundaries even further. Arts and crafts sessions where prisoners create objects for pure enjoyment rather than military utility. Music therapy where Japanese soldiers learn American songs and teach American guards traditional Japanese melodies. Sports activities that seem impossible in a prison setting. Baseball games between American guards and Japanese prisoners. Volleyball tournaments where former enemies compete good-naturedly for nothing more meaningful than exercise and entertainment. These Japanese prisoners returned home carrying more than memories of American hygiene standards. They carried the devastating realization that everything their leaders told them about American weakness was a lie. Hot showers, individual soap bars, and daily dental care weren't signs of decadence. They were evidence of a civilization so advanced, so resource-rich, so fundamentally different that Japan never stood a chance. The war wasn't lost on battlefields. It was lost the moment Japanese leadership convinced themselves that comfort meant weakness, when in reality American strength flowed from there to maintain human dignity even for their enemies. Those prisoners who experienced American standards of basic human care became living proof that true power isn't measured by how much suffering you can endure, but by how much suffering you can prevent.